And the today session for Data 650 mainly is for the walkthrough to the chatbots. Before proceeding to this, which Elena is going to hold, I want very quickly to overview just uh, no more than 4 minutes, where we are in the class, what we are doing, and how it is related with the practical project you are going to do. Previous week, we started about talking about cognitive computing, that this is new type of computing, which is not specifically the traditional one to solve numerical problem, but is working in different way to solve problems which are closer to the way we as a human sense, predict, reason, think. And since this is the case, we are talking about cognitive computer which are not explicitly programmed. They learn interacting with human, and they every time learning they are getting, let's say, better to the suggestion, because the mainly output you are going to expect for this type of computer is, let's say, recommendation, suggestion, prediction. And since this type of computer learn from human experience directly or through document, expert document, which are produced by human, the main interaction is, let's say, is achieved by uh, natural language interaction. Natural language processing and understanding is one of the key elements. So um, we are talking about this system because we understood that 80% of the data is unstructured, comprising text and video, picture. So to make sense of this 80% unstructured data, this is, let's say, a cognitive computing a computer is designed exactly to deal with this type of data. So that's why the way it works is quite different for the traditional one. And we talk also about the specific one, which was Watson, which is one type, very specific cognitive computing. And here I want to point to the three key elements, which I don't see still very clear in the class discussion. For somehow the big picture is still missing in the discussion. My hope is during this and the next week we are going to convey and understand much better what is behind Watson, how it works, and exploring some of the services in Bluemix, you can relate what really are the reading with the practical thing, what you can interact with, explore, and get insight from different type of data, textual, visual, whatever data you are using with the Watson services we have in Bluemix. Remember, I want to hear the summary here of the process which is going behind Watson. It's not just natural language processing. Natural language processing is just the interface. It's like the premise in order for this computer to be able to work in the direction in which it's designed, to interact with human, to learn from human. This is just like, let's say, a portion, of course, necessary, a portion of what is Watson, but it's not all. Behind Watson is all this complex way to create hypotheses. All the advancement of artificial intelligence and machine learning are behind this in deep, let's say, in deep design in the way Watson thinks, let's say, in the sense similar to the way we human think, but not at all to substitute human. It was designed uh, with the purpose to help us, the human, to better do some type of task. So I'm not going to go more in deep to this at this point. We are going to discuss this more in discussion. We are going to proceed with the walkthrough with Elena, but before that, I think Professor Gopati had some experience to share before we go to the detail of chatbots, which are one of the application of Watson. Gopati, can you briefly tell us what was your experience today?
Yeah, hi, Helena, and hi, everybody. So it was an interesting coincidence. Elena was just emailing me about today's presentation, and it turned out that I was actually meeting with some IBM executives on IBM Watson conversation and how it can be used in our enterprise. So just briefly, I work for a healthcare organization, and the company owns about 160 different hospitals and lots of physician practices. And one of the challenges we have is when a patient comes up and registers, we have to provide some quality customer service, and that has been a major challenge. And what we are trying to do is team up with IBM Watson and actually build some, AI-driven chatbots, exactly like the ones that you are gonna try out building for your project. But the chatbot will greet a patient upon arrival, collect all the necessary information from them, like the insurance plan and things like that, and just be it'll be more intelligent, more comprehensive than some of the tools we see out there, and it's also going to give a very good customer experience. So they don't have to wait for a human registrar to call them, and it's going to be automated and really fast. So that was what the discussion was all about. So it just tells you how far reaching this technology is. It's going to be soon. It's going to be probably in some of your physicians' offices, or when you go to urgent care or a hospital. That's what you're going to encounter. It's going to be driven solely by IBM Watson conversation. And I also just want to say that this is not the only use case for chatbots. We're going to also look into automating a lot of manual processes that we follow. So you can guide a analyst or an assistant through a workflow more intelligently and with more information using chatbots. So that's the other use case. I also encourage you to check out x.ai. It's just the letter X as in X-ray, x.ai, when you have time, and you can see how this technology is actually used already for things like scheduling meetings automatically. I was just interacting with another person from another company, and the person said, my assistant Amy will take care of the scheduling of the meeting, and I thought I was talking to a human being. Turns out after 4 or 5 emails, I realized that I am actually talking to a bot, and it has already scheduled my meeting. So just to give you an idea of how far-reaching this this technology is, conversation is, and you are able to access Watson conversation. You're going to be in the cutting edge of the AI technology behind chatbots. That's all I just wanted to say briefly. Thanks, Elena.
Thank Gopati. Just to tell you that we very carefully selected the practical assignment to do for this part of the course. And just because it's not just because it's the hype of the chatbot this year, because they are very serious prediction, like Gartner prediction that 85% of customer interaction by 2020, 85% will be without human. So going forward in this direction, we are trying to prepare you with most valuable which you can have under your belt as a data analyst, data scientist. And with no more, I'm giving the ball to Yelena. She's going to do the walkthrough. After that, we are going to answer questions. I hope you already did some reading. You are not starting just from zero, and you will be able to get advantage of this presentation. Um, okay, everything is okay.
So, all right. Oops. Yeah, this is supposed to save. This demonstration is supposed to save you hours, guys. So basically, what you want to do is your first step is to go to a classroom, to go back to the classroom, and to read all of the materials, week 4 and 5. So you want to start here, right? Then you want to start this here. This is a book, and you're only assigned to read the first chapter. But if you're interested, there are some very good applications explained in here, so you could read more. Then you need to watch this video and keep on going, right? After you get up to this point, right, up to this point, what you need to do is come back here and take this self-assessment. After you're done with the readings, right, up to week 5 at least, go here and take the self-assessment. The reason you need to do it is because all of the instructions, all of the tutorials on chatbots that you find online use the terminology. You need to be familiar with the vocabulary. Alright? So next what you need to do is, suppose that you finish the self-assessment, you're ready. When you're prepared, you're going to go back to your account on IBM Cloud. See, this is my dashboard. First thing I have to do is I have to make sure that I'm not going over the number of services, right? For the student account, the limit is 10. So if you have 10 services on your dashboard added already, you won't be able to add Watson Conversation Service. So make sure you do not have 10 already. If you do, so you may need to sacrifice, go ahead and remove something that you no longer use, right? Now, what you'll do is you're gonna go to the catalog, right? Some of you have done this part already. Now, see this? This is a menu. I have this menu on the left-hand side, and I'm gonna click on Watson. Then I'm gonna click on Conversation. Read all of these terms in here because, well, the service is free, but there are some limitations, and I'll get to that. Oh, it is here. In the service, you can have up to 5 workspaces, but there is one workspace with a demo that they provide for you. That one does not count as one of the workspaces. It's 5 workspaces in addition to the car demo. This will make sense once I show you what intent is and what entity is. But trust me, you're not gonna exceed these 2 limits. You're not. Alright, so after that you're gonna go ahead and click create, right? Let's assume that I did it, because I don't want to add the same service twice, right? So now what I have to do is, once I edit my service, on my next login, I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna find this service. In fact, see, Yelena is bad. She ended up editing it twice at some point. Anyway, now I'm gonna close this because I want to show you how I get to it. See here? So this is a service. This is the right one, I think. I'm gonna click here. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna click on launch. You may see other options here, such as credentials. Don't worry about it. You would worry about it only if you wanted to integrate this service with other services. It's possible to combine this service with other Watson services, but we're not going to do it. We're going to just pretend that you are doing for the purpose of the paper. Alright, so I created launch. I clicked on launch. What do I see in here? This one here, car dashboard, this is a simple application that you get. And it comes when you just add the service to your dashboard, and it does not count as one of the 5 workspaces that you are limited to. So keep this, do not delete it, and play with it. As you watch the videos in the course content, look, this is what you could do. You can click on this sample, right? You go into that sample and you want to actually click through it. Okay, okay, here, so you're gonna click on this, right? You click on edit sample, and after that, okay, after that you can see all of these elements. As you're watching the videos, right, the video is gonna explain you what the entities are inside this example and what the intents are, so you could kind of like watch and follow along, right? So notice that here there is a button here called try it out. When I click on it, I can just play. I can just play with my chatbot. See this? Try it out. It looks like it's a nice day today. What would you like to do, right? I can just enter. I can enter something and see. See this? Basically, I'm entering I put my input here, right? And the chatbot comes up with a response to me based on my input. So I'm going to let this part for you to play. This is a sample, right? So this is what you will do, and you will play with it, but I'm going to exit it. How do I exit it? Watch. When I click on this button, it's going to take me back. It's going to take me back to my workspaces, right? So here it no longer shows blue. It may be because I already opened it. But, well, I guess does not matter. So now let's take a look at what you will be doing. You're going to complete this walkthrough. This is a cold symptoms check. So you will be building this from scratch. Let me quickly show you what you will be building from scratch as you're working on your as you're working in a Word document, right? You have this Word document in the assignment folder. This is a step-by-step. You follow the steps here, and very important, you're not going to be skipping any pages. So right now, for instance, I'm on page 1. I'm not going to proceed to page 2 until I'm done with page 1. What does it say here? Here, this is a brief explanation of what I'm trying to do, right? Like in this case, okay, my plan is when I'm a user, I log in, and Mr. Colt is going to greet me. Mr. Colt is going to ask me what my name is, and I'm going to enter my name. And then Mr. Cold is going to ask me how I'm feeling. If I say that I'm not feeling well, Chatbot is going to ask me, can you elaborate? What are your symptoms? And for the purpose of this exercise, let's assume that we are handling only the cold symptoms, right? So the chatbot is supposed to ask me, what is the problem? And then depending on what symptom I tell the chatbot, depending on the symptom, the chatbot is supposed to give me recommendation, right? But here I just put a flow diagram, but I did not put it right away. What I did was I started from something simple. The first case you want to start is you just enter something. You just enter, I'm not feeling well, and let's see what happens, right? You keep on adding to it. like see, like here, this is a workflow and this is what you need to do for your assignment, but you won't be able to come up with the whole workflow right away. You're gonna start slow. Like, see this part on the left? Forget about it for a moment, right? Let's just say this, I'm not feeling well, and then the chatbot is gonna prompt you for a symptom, and I'm gonna tell what the symptom is. Let's assume I'm gonna tell valid information, and if I tell the valid information, it's gonna give me a recommendation, right? So once I got that to work, right? Once I got that piece to work, then I said, okay, let's see what happens if I enter something invalid. That does not make sense. Then I want the chatbot to keep on asking me, repeating the question until I get it right. Right? Until I get not quite right, but until I get the answer that is recognized, so to speak, right? Then this part here will be left for you to do as an exercise. This part here. If I'm feeling well, if I don't have any symptoms, then the chatbot is going to ask you if you had a flu shot and remind you to do so. So this is left as an exercise. So if you go through this, very important, right? So you're going to add the service, right? And so when you add the service, you're going to have this one card dashboard sample. You're going to play with it, but then you're going to follow instructions to create the new workspace. Basically, a workspace is nothing but a container. It contains the elements of the conversation, and I'll explain to you what the elements are. But the important part here is that, so let me go back to the screen. So here, right, I was over here on this screen. This is how you start, and then you're going to click on create. But again, you're limited to 5. So right now I have 3, right? I'm able to do 2 more. And if I have to do more, I have several options here. I can delete what I don't need. Well, or I can just, if I add another copy of the service, then I have to be careful too, because I'm limited to 10 services. So let's start something from scratch here. Look, I'm gonna hit create, right? And I'm gonna call the Workspace Test. Well, I'm just showing you how I would start it, right? And I just put this. This is just a demo in the description. This is how I would get started with something, right? Now, I'm just gonna hit create. What I'm gonna see? I'm gonna see nothing right now, right? I have nothing. No intents, no entities, no dialogue. So you're gonna start from the blank piece of paper. Your next step will be to decide, hey, what is it that I want to do, right? What is it? What do I want my chatbot to do? And this is where I'm going down. I'm gonna say, hey, I want my chatbot to ask me how I'm feeling, right? I want to tell my chatbot that I have a cold. So this is where the intent comes in, right? So I'm sick, I'm not feeling well, I have a cold, right? So that's what it is. And intent is basically a way to communicate certain purpose. For instance, something hurts me, or I want you to, in a car example, it's going to be turn something on, right? To turn something on, it's an intent. To complain that something hurts you, it's an intent. It's a specific purpose of the conversation, right? So what I would do here is, one way I will just click on add an intent, and I'm gonna put an intent name, right? Like hurt, right? Just give an example. I just put hurt, and then if I want to, I can add a description, and I can click create an intent. Hurt edit. Now, sometimes I can say something that hurts, or I can say I'm in pain, right? Example is an alternative way to phrase the purpose. For instance, same thing as turn it on, cut it on, get it started. Well, it's a different way to communicate the same purpose, right? So that's called an example. See, vocabulary. An intent, it's a specific purpose in my communication. An example, it's an alternative way to say it, right? It's an alternative way to say something. I can keep on adding intents and examples like this manually, right? Or I can do this. I can import them from the file. This is what I want you to do. And for your homework assignment, you're going to do this. You're going to click here. And then what you'll do is in the course content, in the assignment folder, there are two files, right? You will download it. And then you're going to go in here and you're going to, well, you download it, then you save the file on your hard drive, and you remember where you saved it, right? And then you just go choose a file, and then you want to once you find a file, then you're gonna do upload, right? And when you upload the file, let me show you what's gonna happen here. Okay, so when you upload the file, here we go, let's scroll down. You're gonna see a message. Well, this is the message you're gonna see. You're gonna see this message right here. So what will happen is that new intents will be added to the workspace. But if you attempt to add an intent with the same name, like for example, I have already the intent called Hertz. When I upload my intents from file, if I have another intent with the same name, what will happen is I will be adding examples to it. I will be adding, well, let's actually go ahead and name it. Let me intentionally name it the same name. See this? I have an intent here. This is my intent file. And the first column is example. The second column is an intent name. I called it feeling sick. And this one here, this is an example. So those are the alternative ways to say I'm feeling sick. And as you're developing your chatbot, one thing that might help you is a thesaurus. You can search online the alternative ways to say it, right? And you keep on training your chatbot. But let's go ahead, let me save this, and I'll show you. Let me save it at the location where I would know. Okay, I know where it's saved. So now let me do this. I'll copy and paste the location. Okay. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm going to upload this file. I'm going to upload this file here. But before I do that, I wanted to rename this intent, feeling sick, intentionally. So if I created an intent, if I want to rename it, I just click on it and I'm gonna edit it. And I'm gonna call it feeling sick, right? Feeling underscore sick. Now remember, you cannot have spaces inside the intent names. You can have spaces inside examples, but not inside the intent names. Important, you cannot, if you delete something, it's gonna be gone forever. You cannot undo it, right? So now I've got feeling sick, and what happens if I do this? If I import it from file, oops. So it's in here. It's intents, open, import. Now look at this. I already have feeling sick, but what this actually means, this is not an error. What it's telling me is that I already had one intent, and it was not deleted, but instead what it did, it added an examples to it. I had one intent, but I only had one example, but in a file I had 28 examples, so it just added to it. And then it added 3 new intents. See the 3 new intents added, and then this is a 51 total new examples added. So remember this is vocabulary. An intent, it's something that I want to do, right? I want to tell I'm not feeling well. I want to tell goodbye. I want to say that I have a cold. I want to ask somebody to turn something on. I want to calculate my body mass index. This is an intent. Entity is a context of an intent. Like, for example, I want to say something hurts me. What hurts me? I can say the throat. I can say the ear, the nose. This is going to be the entity, right? Or to turn something on, right? What can we turn on? We can turn on the radio. We can turn on the air conditioning. We can turn on the windshield wipers. So those are examples of the entities, right? So, and this becomes important in the dialogue, and I'll explain it to you why. So here, right, entities. So your entities in this case, right, is gonna be the throat, right? I'm gonna add an entity, and I'm gonna say, well, let's intentionally add the ones that I already have in the file here. See this? There are two ways to add the entities. One way is type it in, another way is load the file. The file needs to follow the format. So column A is going to be your entity name, and this will actually make sense after I show you how to do manually. It will make sense. So let's go ahead, let's add a new entity, right? I'm going to call it the cold symptom, right? Now, cold symptom, and here I'm going to say what type of cold symptoms can it be, right? Like, see, like turn something on, turn on the appliance. What type of appliance, right? So so same here. What is a symptom? And then in my value, I can say, for instance, sore throat, right? Or I can say cough. I can say cough, right? What is a synonym? Synonym is an alternative way to to say the same word. Like, how could somebody express the word cough? I could say coughing up the mucus, for instance, right? I can say dry cough. So this is an alternative way to say it, right? An alternative way to say specific example. Like in a car example that you're going to be looking at, you have an intent called turn on, right? And an entity is going to be an appliance. And one of the values is going to be the air conditioning. But the synonyms is going to be AC, and then in some countries they call it air con, some countries they call it air condition, some people call it air. So this is going to be the synonyms, right? Synonym is another way to say. Or you can say the windshield wipers, right? Wipers is a synonym. Here in this example, we have cough, we have dry cough. So people can say the same thing differently, and you want to train your bot to recognize it's the same concept being said slightly different way, right? So now here, very important, after you do that, you want to click add value. Otherwise, what you typed in here will be lost. It will be lost, right? So ultimately, if I want to edit, I'm gonna click here, right? And add more synonyms if I want to. Alright, so now let's exit this, and this is what you can do to import. You just click here, and similarly you're gonna choose file, and this is gonna be my entities. Here we go, and I'm gonna click import, and I'm gonna get the same message. So it's telling me how many new entities added, how many new values added. Well, pattern, I'm not using patterns, but this is something that you would want to look at later on. But first you start simple, right? Here it's showing me how many synonyms I added and the new values, right? Okay, let's click on done. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start working on a dialog, right? But before we do that, hint, this is my entities, system entities. I promise you that I'll show you how to use system entities tonight as well. But let's first start with a dialog. Nothing, right? So this is how I started when I was working on your walkthrough. I have nothing. Now I'm gonna hit create. What do I have here? I have two nodes. Welcome node. Welcome is what happens when the user logs in, when the user starts the conversation. The bot is gonna greet you, right? Here, do you see this bubble? When I click on this bubble, this is how I test my conversation. In this moment, it says, hello, how can I help you? Well, if I type, I'm sick, what happens? I did not understand. Can you paraphrase it? Can you rephrase it? Well, it's finding my intent, right? It's finding that I'm feeling sick. What is this? This is an intent, right? It's understanding that I'm trying to say that I'm sick, but in the same time, it's jumping in here. See, this is the last node. If you click at the node, each node has a condition, right? This is an entry condition, and this is a response. So entry condition means when the node will be executed, when the dialog node will be executed. Anything else condition stands for nothing else is true, right? And I'll show you exactly when we have more nodes. So basically, when I entered something that was not recognized, when I entered something that my bot did not recognize, it's gonna go to this default node and tell me that it was not recognized, right? And next time when I enter the same thing, I'm gonna get slightly different response, right? Why am I getting slightly different response? Because if I click here, see this? This is a variation. Over here, I can add the variation to my responses, right? So next time I end up in the same situation, the response can be different. By default, it's selecting them sequentially. So if I enter something not recognized the third time, it's gonna give me this response. I can set it at random, right? You can change, and you can even edit. You can add your own response, right? Now, so this is the default. What is the problem? It's being recognized, but nothing happens. It's because I have to add a node. And to do that, see this, I'm highlighting the node, I'm highlighting the welcome node, and right under it, I'm gonna click add node. See this? And I'm gonna name it as feeling sick, right? Sick, right? And then here, pay attention, right? This is my entry condition. Look at this. I want this to happen, right? So I want this to execute whenever it sees that there is an intent feeling sick. So what I have to put a pound, right? Intent name starts with a pound, and I'm gonna pick it up. Feeling, I would have to do this, feeling sick, right? If bot recognizes feeling sick, this is an intent. Okay? So, and here I want to type, here I want to say what I want my bot to respond is, right? Let's just do it like this. We want to do it one step at a time. Let's say the bot wants to respond, sorry to hear that. Whenever I type that I'm not feeling well, I want my bot to respond, sorry to hear that. So let's close this out, right? And this is what you do now. You go clear, you clear it to test it again, right? Okay, hello, how can I help you, right? And then I'm gonna say not feeling well, right? I type not feeling well. So see this, now it's picking up correctly. It's going into this node correctly. But what happens again? Nothing happens because I did not specify what to do next, right? I didn't, did I? No. Right? So there is another part here. You need to specify what you want to do next. It's right here. Right now it's waiting for an input because I said to wait for an input. Instead, I could specify where I want to jump to. If I had multiple nodes, I could select in which place of the conversation I want to go next. So just to keep it simple, I'm gonna add another node, and I'm gonna say goodbye. Goodbye. I'm just keeping it simple, just to show you. And here I can say if the board recognizes intent as a goodbye, right? And then it's gonna respond goodbye. You're gonna start very simple. You're not gonna start something like super elaborate as I showed you earlier. Okay, right? So now I'll go back here and I want to say that after I show this response, I want to jump to, and I want to jump to where? Goodbye, right? I want to go to goodbye. And I have several options. I can check if the goodbye condition is met, or I can just go to response of the goodbye. I selected response. So let's see what's going to happen now. I'm going to query it. Hello, how can I help you? I say I am not feeling well. Look what happened. I'm sorry to hear that, and then it goes to goodbye. Well, why is it doing it? Because this is what I wanted to do, right? On the other hand, instead of saying sorry to hear that, I could ask what are your symptoms, right? See this? In here, feeling sick. Instead of that, I could say this. Respond with what are your symptoms, right? See? Alright, I can ask you what are your symptoms, and in here, instead of jumping to goodbye, I'm gonna say wait for your input, right? So this is how I worked on it. I worked on it slowly. So here I'm letting myself enter exactly what my problem is, what my input is. And here I'm gonna say, for instance, I have a sore throat, right? It will take that input, but the problem is, what will it do with it? We don't know. I did not say what to do with it, right? So what I said is that I'm sick, right? I can say I'm sick. Here it is. It's asking me what are your symptoms, and I'm gonna say sore throat. There we go. Ooh, what happened? Well, it says irrelevant, but in the same time, it recognized that I'm looking at the entity. The entity is sore throat, right? But let's see. Why did it find irrelevant? Oh, well, I think it probably have a cold, right? If I have a sore throat, I have a cold. So let's go ahead and train it. So sore throat should be associated with the have a cold intent. Right now it's saying Watson is training. I'm associating the sore throat with have a cold. But still, I did not tell it what to do, right? Ultimately, what I wanted to do is that based on my symptom, I wanted to provide the recommendation, right? So, what I needed to do is this. Let me go back and show you what I needed to do in here. This is a cold symptoms check. I'm going in here and I'm showing you what I needed to do. Okay, so here it is. This is a not feeling well block. I added the child node, and this is a child node, and I added it have a cold. And I set the entry conditions always true. So basically, when I'm here, look, when I'm here, I'm going to type, I'm going to prompt you, what are your cold symptoms? And then automatically, I wanted to go to the child node. But here, in the child node, I forced you to enter what your cold symptom is. I added, this is called slot. This is called a slot. So basically, let me show you what's happening. Let me show you. Let's run this test here. Okay, I even did more. In here. There is even more. I'll show you. I even made it prompt you for a name. And I'll show you how I did it. But right now, just to get through this part. Alright, so now it's asking me. See this? The bot asked me for my name, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, well, now it says, "Greeting, Yelena. How are you feeling today?" I'm gonna say, "I am sick," right? It's feeling sick. What are your cold symptoms? And here, if I type this, if I type elephant, see this? I'm asked this question again. This is exactly what it's doing in here. I want the bot to keep on asking me the question until I kind of like satisfied with an answer. So if I say sore throat, right, it's recognized. See this? When I answered sore throat, it's gonna respond with the recommendation, and then it's gonna say, "Thank you for using the program. Have a nice day, Helena." Speaking of this piece here, I am prompting for a name and I'm storing it in a variable. In a walkthrough, I show you step by step how to save the name in a variable and how to use it here in a bot response. Your ungraded exercise is to add this name to the goodbye node. Your ungraded exercise will be to display the user's name in a goodbye node message. So basically, in this walkthrough, you have a set of ungraded exercises and you have to do them because the rest of the walkthrough builds on them. So now, but basically, this is a little bit tough. I need to explain to you this in detail. This node right here. Let's close this. So here, this node is a little bit tricky because I wanted to force the user to enter. I wanted to force the user to enter to answer the question. So what I did was I created something that's called slot, right? I might have to show you how to do it from scratch. Let's go back to the workspaces because this is really tricky, and trust me, you want to watch the videos on this in a classroom. So this is this one test, right? Look here, I'm gonna go to the dialog node and I'm going to create a child node. To create a child node, I have to highlight my node and then click on add child. And now remember, I'm just gonna call it cold symptom, right? There we go. Now this is gonna be true, right? So I always want to jump in here, right? I always want to jump in here, and here what I had to do is I had to go to customize, watch, customize, and I had to turn this on. You have to physically enable the slot. You have to enable this to be on. If you want, in order to be able to use the slots, you should enable it. And slot is basically, it helps me collect your input. It helps me collect the input. And it keeps on asking a question until the answer is received, right? So here I'm going to check for the cold symptom and store it in the variable cold symptom. So what is this? This is a variable, right? And this is an entity, right? I want to make sure that my entity is recognized and store the response in a variable. And if my question is not answered, I'm gonna type what is your symptom. This is how you configure this, right? I'm just showing you how to add this, what I added, right? And this is required. Required means that you will be prompted for this until this is satisfied. And when this is satisfied, if you have 2 slots, the control will go to another slot. Or if not, it will go to the response. Now, in this case, we want to be able to display a different response based on a symptom that was specified. So, to do that, it's not in here. Let me see. No, it is here. You have to click on Customize. Oops, you have to click on Customize, and you have to turn on the multiple responses. See this? You have to do this. You have to turn it on and click Apply. In order to enter multiple responses, you have to turn it on and click Apply. So here, you're going to say this. If bot recognizes, and in the entities, see if the bot recognizes, look at this, you go cold symptom, and then you're going to put this, right? You put the column and then say cough. And if it's a cough, then you type your response, right? And so on. Yeah. So, but sometimes you want to use more complex condition. You want to say if it's cough or a runny nose, perhaps, right? So to do that, you just click here. You click here, and then you can add multiples. You click on a plus, and then you can say something like cold, and then you can put like the cold symptom, and you can put like fever, right? Right? Or you can see this, you got and or, and you can make a compound condition, right? And then you can type a response, how you want to respond based on the condition. So in a walkthrough, I showed you how to enter 2, and you have to enter 2 more as part of the exercise, right? So I showed you how I did it, right? I needed to show you that. And there is something called handler. Suppose that I keep on repeatedly asking you the same question until morning, and you know, I wore you out. You got really tired and you want to quit. So this is called handler. Handler is basically, I can say that if the bot recognizes that I say goodbye, right? If the bot recognizes that I'm trying to say goodbye, I can respond with something else, you know, and can go to goodbye. So this is in other words, it's one way to break the cycle, so to speak, right? If over here I can say something that I want to quit, right? I should have that opportunity to quit. So if it's recognizing perhaps the goodbye, right? If it's recognizing the goodbye, then here I can specify what I want to do, right? I can enter response, and then I want to say what to do, right? And oops, I closed it. But basically, instead of I can specify the response, and then I can tell what I wanted to do, right? I could prompt again, or I can skip this slot. So in other words, here I can keep on asking you the same question, and there is a way to specify the condition that will make you break this cycle, so to speak. If you want to exit this, if you want to skip this answering the question, right? Or you could say goodbye, right? In the middle of the conversation, I keep on asking you what hurt you. You can say goodbye, and if goodbye is recognized, you're gonna be skipped, right? You'll skip the question, right? So that's a point of handler, right? So that's basically the steps, but here, if you go back to that example, oops, button conversation, okay, so I'll have to show you BMI example as well, but let's go back here, and I'll show you what I've been doing with name here. So this is a dialog, and this is what I'm doing with name. Here, I created a separate node. I call it what is your name, right? and I make it store the name. So when you click on the node, this is what you see, right? Oops. This is the editor, but let me close the editor for right now. So in general, see that this is a node, and the way the execution starts is that it checks the condition from the top. So when you start the conversation, the welcome node executes, and this is the child node. So when the parent node is true, it could go to the child node. And here I set it up to execute at all times, and I want this response. I want it to say, hello, my name is Mr. Cole, this is my mission, right? May I have your name? So here, I want this node to prompt you for a name, and I want it to capture the input into the variable. But to do that, see, here is the trick. I had to go in here, triple dot, I had to open the editor, and in here, I would have to enter the variable. Oh, I'll show you. It's not in here. It's in the next node. It's in the next node. I'll show you. See this? So this is one way to see. This is a code that gets generated behind this node, right? There is no code in here, but the code is going to be in the next node, because in this node I'm prompting you to enter. I'm asking you to enter the name, right? I'm not storing anything yet, but take a look at what happens in this node. I'm waiting for the user input, right? But what happens after that? Where am I going? Right? Am I going to this node right here? Feeling sick, but let's see. Let's look at the code here. Open the JSON editor. So somewhere in one of the nodes, somewhere I should be storing it, right? So basically, see this, if you look at this here, I'm asking you for your name, and after I ask you for a name, I'm referring to you by your name. So in the walkthrough, I showed you how I'm doing it in the first node, right? See this, let me show you here. It's better to show you here. Scroll down. So we are here, we are creating the first two nodes here. Right, and then I outlined you what's gonna happen, and then here, you're up to here, we already added the not feeling well, right? So finally specifies what you want to do, and here, this is what I did here. This is true, and see this? This is a variable. This is the what is your name, and this. See this is, you have to put this context. This is a block of code that you would need to add. Yes, exactly, it's what is your name node. That's right. So this is a block of code that you need to add. Let's go back to here. What is your name? This. How could I miss it? This is what you have to do here. Very important, you must type this correctly, because you're gonna get an error message. Like, see this? If I get the indentation wrong, well, in this case it did not complain, but very often if I miss the syntax, I will not be able to save my changes. Right? Sometimes if I type the syntax wrong, I won't be able to save my changes. Look at this. Look, this is what it's doing. This is how you store the input from the keyboard, right? This is a context, and this is a variable, I call it name, and this is input text. This is just a syntax to store the name that was entered from the keyboard. And the value, this is the response. See this? I'm referring to this variable name. How you feeling today? See this? So this is going to be the node's response. This is a response. And what is your name, right? See this? See here in the welcome node, look, in the welcome node, I'm asking you, may I have your name, right? After that, the execution goes here. You type your name, right? You type your name, and your name gets picked up from the input and stored. And then This is the message you're gonna see, right? This is the message you saw. And the message included Yelena. See this? If I close this, if I close the editor, see this? This is a response. Greetings, name. What is this? This is a variable, right? It's a context variable. And at any time, if I can do this, if I can run the test, see this? I'm gonna run the test, and I'm gonna enter Yelena, right? Look, if I click here, I can see what my variables are. I have a variable called name, and it's Yelena. See this? Oh, and this is a time zone. This is one of the system. Okay? Okay, here we go. Let's close this out. See this? But your task will be to do this for the goodbye node. You're not gonna get this input again, but you just have to add this to the message. Right? Now, so let's go back to something else. Notice that entities, there are two types of entities. There's the user entities and system entities. And I put together an example where I'm using the system entities. It's a slightly different boot. It has one intent so far, and it has no user entities, just the system entities for right now. But you can have both. But I called it the BMI calculator. So let's run this. And here, the assumption, I'm going to assume that I'm going to put my height in inches, and I'm going to put my weight in pounds. So hello, how can I help? Okay. I know that I may have an ambitious plan for my chatbot, but to keep it simple, let's first start with BMI, right? Let's just look at the best case scenario. I know that I want BMI, right? Okay, now the bot is asking me how tall am I. I'm gonna say 60 because this is how tall I am. I'm about 60 inches, right? 5 feet. I'm gonna hit enter. What is this? See this? Entity. This picked up that I'm entering the number. See this number? It's a system entity called number. But, very important, I did it already. But you will have to do it. Before you can use this here, you would have to go to this tab, System Entities, and you would have to turn it on. You would have to, oops, I have to close this to show you this. See this? I have to turn it on. System number, I have to turn it on. Otherwise, I could not use it, right? Yes. Here it is. See? Now, it's asking me about my weight. And I'm gonna put the truth. I heard somebody's trying to help me. Guys, unless you're presenting the chatbot and asking questions, would you please be on mute? Okay. So, now, we cannot be speaking. Two people cannot talk at the same time. Alright, so here it is. And the bot supposed to give me my body mass index, which is 21, right? The chatbot is calculating the BMI for me. So here, I did not explicitly specify the entity, but this is the system entity. It identifies that what I entered the number, and I asked my bot to do the calculation. So I'll show you how I did it. Well, first of all, let's take a look at more cases here. See this? So here, let's assume I know, well, BMI. Let's assume that. How tall are you? What happens if I enter the text? I am 60 inches. Right? I enter the text. What happened? Oh, take a look at it. It still picked up 60, right? It still picked up that I'm talking about 60. And here, when I say something like 110 pounds, right? It picked up. It picked up that I'm talking about the number, right? Isn't it nice? Yeah? So, and it's giving me my body mass index. Now, let's try again. Look at this. It's gonna be funny right now. BMI. And now I'm gonna put elephant. See this? It did not like it, right? it's asking me again, how tall are you? This is the idea of slot. It keeps on asking me the same question, and it will keep on asking me until tomorrow because I didn't add a handler. Handler is a way how you would want to handle some alternative input. Or if I wanted to say goodbye, right, I wanted to quit. It won't do it, right? But anyway, let's just say 60, and then let's put something different. Let's put my weight is gonna be 120, and it's gonna give me the different body mass index. And to do that, I put in a formula. It's an expression. So let's close this out. And yes, speaking of this, look, I'm gonna click on number 3 here, and it's gonna show me all my variables. I created a variable called height, I created a variable called weight, and this shows me the current value. So when you're testing, you might find it helpful to check what the values are at the moment. So let me go ahead and close this out, and then I can show you. Let's go back to the dialog. Here it is. So I have my famous welcome node, and I have my famous anything else node. So if in the beginning of conversation, if I typed elephant, the bot would have told me that I was misunderstood. I created this node, I call it BMI, and this node has 2 slots. The first slot is called height. And see this, I'm checking for system number. I'm checking whatever is entered is a number, and I'm storing it into a variable, I call it height. And it's gonna prompt me, how tall are you, right? It's gonna prompt me in here, how tall are you? And it's gonna keep prompting me until it picks up the number in input. After that, it's gonna go to the next slot, and it's gonna asking me about my weight, right? And it keeps on asking me until it picks up the number in input. After that, it's gonna go to the response. Now, to type this response, I actually had to click here and open the JSON editor. And what I did here, see these values, originally the value was put in quotes, but this piece here is an expression. So you have less than sign question, right? And then the end part is another question and greater than sign, right? So everything inside this is an expression. So what I'm doing here is I multiply the weight by 703 and divide it by the height squared. Well, I found this formula online, but this works only when the weight is in pound. I made an assumption that my weight is in pound and my height is in inches. Here I'm just making an assumption. I want to keep it simple. I understand that some of you may say, hey, why don't we use a different formula for male, female? Why don't we prompt the user for metric units? Well, those ideas are excellent, but you want to add a little piece at a time. And when you change something, you want to test everything, right? When you change one thing, you have to test the whole flow. Now, see this? This is what I did here. I'm printing new BMI is, and see this? This indicates that whatever follows inside is a calculation. What is the weight? Weight is a variable, and height is a variable, right? I showed you this. And I'm using the system entities to recognize the number. There are other entities such as names and the dates, and you have an ungraded exercise to explore this. And then in the classroom you see an example where they displayed the message, the greeting message differently depending on what time of the day it is. They use the time entity to do that, right? So here, that might be a little bit advanced when you're first looking at it, but when you look at it again, it will make more sense. But anyway, I have 2 slots here, but I did not put a handler. This is very important. You want to handle it. So if I keep on entering the input without the numbers, I don't want to stay here until morning. I want to be able to quit, right? That's what basically handler does. Or I could ask something different question, right? I could ask perhaps in other chatbot question where we had the chatbot, we were looking at the symptom. I could ask, oh, by the way, what is this? Sometimes I want my question to be answered, but I still want to stay in logic as I was. I still want to continue attempting to answer the question, but in the meantime, I want the bot to answer sort of like a side question, right? So that's another reason you would use a handler. What I could do, in general, I could collect the gender, and I could configure this further. See this here, I have one response only. I could add another slot and collect the gender from a person, and then what I could do here is that I could do a slightly different formula if the gender was the male, and a different formula if the gender was a female. But to do that, I would have to enable what? The conditional response. I would have to do this. I would have to enable this, right? This is basically, see, there is a difference between multiple response and conditional response. Conditional response is if a certain condition is true, this is what I want to respond with. If another condition is true, I want to respond this way, right? So let's turn this off. Apply. Now, response variation is basically it's a paraphrasing, right? I want to phrase it differently. I want to say the same message, but say it differently. For instance, this is how tired you get if I keep on asking you how much do you weigh, how much do you weigh, how much do you weigh. But what if you entered the non-numeric input and I want to ask you again how much do you weigh, but maybe I should ask you differently. I should say, hey, please enter the number. The weight must be a number, right? So then I would have to go here and edit this, right? How tall are you? See this? Then I would have to add the alternative, right? I could add the variations that, okay, I want to be able to ask the same question differently, right? Yeah. I can do, see here, I can even enable conditional responses, I can enable condition and so on. Yeah. But sometimes I should be able to paraphrase it. I should be able to say the same thing but differently, right? Or especially in this node, right? When I run this, let me run this, right? Hello, how can I help you? And I'm gonna put something table. It's not recognized. I don't understand it. Can you try to rephrase it? And then I'm gonna put laptop. I intentionally put something not recognized. See this, now I'm getting a slightly different message. But what if I was getting the same prompt? It could be a little bit irritating, right? Sometimes perhaps a person it could be English is a second language perhaps. So sometimes phrasing the question differently could be understood well, right? So that's one thing you want to keep in mind. You want to add alternative ways to say the same message. This is one way to make your bot more user-friendly. You want to ask the same question in different words, different phrasing. You want to capture the user's name and refer to the user by name, alright? Then another thing that you want to do, I'm not doing it here, but for the purpose of the assignment, you have to pretend that you're doing. How would you improve the service if you had an opportunity to integrate with other services in Watson Analytics? Like, let's think of it about the code example, right? Is it really possible to hard code all of the symptoms? Well, think about it this way. Would it be better if I had some kind of like a knowledge-based repository? Where I could store all my symptoms or all my documents that could get searched when the question is typed? Wouldn't it be nice to integrate another Watson service? Or ultimately think of it this way. Suppose that I'm a customer who does not know how to type, right? Maybe there is a speech-to-text conversation. Maybe I can tell my chatbot hurts me, right? And my voice gets recognized and I get a response, right? So there is a speech to text, right? Or maybe I can submit an image. I'm not sure how to say this road, and I can put a picture of this road, right? So through like image recognition. So here you want to be creative. In that part, you're not gonna actually integrate other service, but you want to be creative. Like what else I can do to enhance the service capability, to enhance the usefulness of the dashboard, right? In this case, you're hard coding the symptoms, but what if I wanted to create a symptoms checker for the whole body? Am I going to hard code all the muscles? Probably not. I might have to use some kind of the repository. Some chatbots could use the database, right? Some chatbots could use another service, such as there is one mentioned in a classroom. There is one example. It's a weather. Yep. There is one. This is the weather chatbot. So basically, what this one does is that there is a weather service in IBM Cloud that picks up the temperature. It picks up the temperature from the specified location. So it's using the weather service to respond. Banking chatbot, it integrates several services as well. What you're asked to do is you're just asked to read at how other services enhance the capability of the application, right? Uh, so do we have any questions? I know it's a lot of the material, and I understand that this is new because the first assignment was text mining. You may have seen it in early data mining course, but this is totally new. I understand. So yeah, another thing that I really found helpful, and uh, I would recommend it. I would strongly recommend it. This is a course, free chatbot course. That's the one I actually took that one recently, and I really loved it. They go through the chatbot step by step, and they show you how to do one. The Florence. So they build an application where it's a flower shop, and you order the flowers, and they go through really nicely step by step, and they show you in an example with the variables and the slots. So you can, even if you don't have a time for it right now, I believe you have access to the course content for 4 months after the class ends, so take advantage of the resources. You still can go back and explore. And it's in the cognitive class webpage, same page where you may have taken other courses, the big data, the backend data 610, Watson Analytics Introduction. It's the same. It used to be called big data before, but now it's cognitive class. Yeah. So
Let's see, we have question, Elena.
yes,
because I know they have no time to prepare themselves to assimilate everything. We will be answering question, and if needed, next week we can meet again for question and answer. Since I don't see any question, I want to proceed with my request, which is for second time. For the assignment, you will have to go and do something even small, but let's say original. So I very would like at least two, let's say two volunteer to work in something which is related with the university need, something which I promised to our enrollment department. And let me share my screen so you get enthusiastic what I want. Oh, it's not this what I want to share, sorry. Oh no. Okay. Um, share application. Okay, here we go. One interesting project will be, it's not needed too much for this assignment, just something like proof of concept. For instance, if we go to this is public information about data analytic program in the UMUC city. And when you go to data analytics, here to the right, you have the option, and this is actually what the people from enrollment and admission are receiving constantly student call, how to select better which program suit better my need. And here is some automatic tool. You can, for instance, select two different program. This is something which each program chair myself designed for our program, and get a comparison here in the web city. But as you know how customer service work, many of our students, so all the information is here, but all customer that is the part of the customer service, they need help. It's not just enough you read all this and you decide what to do. They need advice. So one of the things I'm interested, if some of you are interested to work in this project, for Data 650, this is going to be very small proof of concept, let's put it this way, but maybe if the feasibility show something prospective, we can think about some bigger project which can evolve to capstone project in 670. So think about what you're going to do for this assignment, and this is one of the possible things which I very would like that someone takes this. Please contact me if you are interested. Elena, back to you.
Oh, yes. I forgot to show how to export the file, what they call the JSON file. It's because what's going to happen here is that if you need assistance, right? If you need assistance, I would have to take your file. And here, we made a rule here that when you...
You have to share the screen.
Yes, I'm sharing the screen now.
Okay.
There is a rule we made here for this assignment is that the work cannot be graded until you submit the file. So this is what I'm talking about. Let me show you. So this is my workspace, right? This is internally stored as a JSON file. So whenever you're told to create something, right, we need to see what you created. So in order for us to see what you created, this is what you need to do. You need to click on the triple dot, and you're going to click on download JSON. Download as JSON, and you're going to save this file, right? You're just going to save this file. Now, remember where you saved it, right? And this is a file that you're going to turn in. Well, for some reason it's showing this browser thing. It's maybe because it's my default. Maybe because it's a browser that I'm using right now. But in general, this is a file that you would need to submit. This is a workspace file, and an instructor, as part of the grading, he or she will take this file and do this import, right? We're gonna import the workspace, and we're going to do that. We're going to choose the file, right? And wherever I downloaded it, it went to downloads, right? Or, well, whenever I download it, I'm going to open it. See this? Right? I'm going to open this file, and I'm going to click on import. This is how you will be evaluated. And when an instructor imports your workspace, see, this is your work. And then an instructor will go in here, right? And will look at your paper. An instructor will look at your paper and will compare the paper with this. You are asked to create several scenarios, right? And the instructor will be reading the paper and looking at this at the same time. So that file is mandatory for your work to be graded for the next assignment. And my part is just to show you how to download the file, what an instructor will need to look at your work, right? So if you're having a problem, or if you would like me to check if your file opens correctly, I'll be more than happy to do that. before you submit, right? You can, if you would like me to check if it opens, right? Well, or if you may need, if you're working on this and if you need help with something, I may need your file just to look at it, right? So just keep in mind how to download this file, right? So let's go back here. See this? But for me, I have to keep in mind that I cannot have more than 5 at the same time. I cannot have more than 5. So now what I have to do is, this is what I just uploaded, right? This is a copy that I just uploaded. Very important thing here, delete. This is how you delete, right? But look, I'll delete. But the problem is, see this? When you delete a workspace, it's gonna ask you to confirm, because this is a big thing that I'm doing. When I'm deleting something, there is no way to restore it. Or my data 16 terminology was there is no recycle bin, right? So there is no recycle bin. Whenever I deleted something, it's gone, right? But the point is, you know which file we are talking about, right? Line, download this JSON. This is what you need to do to submit this assignment. You have to download it as JSON and submit the JSON file. Another thing is, what I would recommend is backing up your work. So you may want to download whenever you got to the good point, right? Okay, I know that at this point I created my BMI. I only can take inches. I can only accept pounds for the weight. I know that, but what I have right now, it is working. I want to create a backup, right? So I could export the file. I could download the JSON file just to keep a backup, because it's a working copy. Whenever, if I start adding something, if I break it, I can always roll back to my working copy just by uploading the JSON file. So for yourself, this is how you can back up the work. Or, I know that I have a working copy, I can duplicate and work on a copy. Well, I realize that I'm limited to 5. If I ever have to delete something, right, save the JSON file first. If you have to delete, just download the JSON file, because if you have to restore it, you can upload the file again, right? So you're going to remember it, right? What Elena says? Elena says 3 words. No, recycle bin. Remember that picture from data 610, recycle bin with a red X on top, right? Whenever you delete something, this is gone, right? Yeah, I had to say it. It's important, but somebody will always do it. Yeah. I mean, anything important, anything I may have missed?
This is Linesh. Do you
Yeah.
want to also cover what we just discussed at the beginning, like about the usage? If you're running out of space and you
Uh,
need to get an error message about it.
ah. Yeah, I believe one of the students sent me the same error too. I think it has to do with the number of services limit, right? Because you can have only 10 services.
Yeah, it could be services limit, or if like one of the services is like very heavy and you've been kind of using all the memory, because one of the things is also saw that there's a memory limit.
Mm.
So it may not be just the number 10 of, I mean, the number of services, but it could also be that some service that you may
Oh.
be really overloaded.
Mm. Oh. Oh, yes, that's right. Because see here, if you look at this, I think in here, if you look at the bill in the usage, it should show the memory you might be using, right? Because, well, yeah, memory is very important. There was last time it was the second assignment. This time it's gonna be assignment 4, where something. No, I don't see it. But you want to pay attention to the memory. Okay, so I see some questions right now. Let me take a look. Uh, Okay, how do I submit after download? Candace, you would submit the same way as you submit your assignments. As a student, how do you do it? You log into Lear, you go to the assignments tab, right? How do you usually submit? You do it the same and you just upload the files that you saved. How did you submit the first assignment? You do the same way with this one. You submit the paper and you submit the JSON file. It's a file that you're saving on your hard drive, right? And yes, Jerry, this is an excellent question. So we're going to pause the recording, but I realize that you would like it to be posted tonight, but it also depends on when it becomes available on the server. So Jerry's question if the recording will be posted tonight. Well, we'll do it as soon as we get it. As soon as, well, because see, we have to get, it had to be uploaded on the server. So, yeah. Okay, yes, but Candace...
Let me tell you, we are taking already hour and a half. Larger the recording, more time take to be available. So I cannot say precisely when it's going.
Yes. Yes, and also uploading it to YouTube, because it all depends on it's multiple things, multiple factors. Yeah. But Jerry, we will do it at the earliest convenience. Let's say it this way. It will be there. Right? But yeah, the memory is it's a very good point, Linesh, yes. So, but exactly, it depends exactly what services people have been using. And if something is running, I would go and check definitely what's currently running, because some services such as streaming, they take a lot of resources. Yeah.
None of these services we are using is consuming a lot of memory. So at this point, no. Now, if you go beyond what we are exploring right now, it can be. But what we are doing for the class, no limitation.
Yeah, but that's what Linish was saying, that it's highly possible that somebody who ran into an issue might be using something that we're not using for the class. Right, Linish? Linish?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's what it is, because I was also surprised to see that somebody would get that kind of error message right away before even starting with this assignment, because we haven't really used anything yet. So I was just kind of assuming that folks are kind of getting into on the platform and trying few things here.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they go to Stream Analytic and all these very resource-intensive services, I don't see how they can get, because we have excellent amount of memory available.
Yeah.
Think about it, we can work Spark.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. A couple of students kind of ran into this today, so that's the reason why I asked Yelena to kind of reiterate this, make sure that folks understand that we can't be using a lot of resources, because there's going to be some limitation, and that's the area where that's the time when we'll have to kind of think of which one they don't need it, just kind of delete it, either from the dashboard, maybe not from the usage, but probably from the dashboard itself.
Yeah, and also some people had an account before the class started. Some people may have had an account, so that's the thing. Yeah. Yeah, there were at least 32 people who had an account, because remember last semester we were doing the what do you call the demo. Remember, so yeah. But yeah, you can have 10, up to 10. 40 is for the faculty, you have 10. And see here, on your dashboard, you're gonna say, yeah. And also make sure that the region is south and the space is dev. Otherwise, you're gonna get an error message that you don't have space. Because you want to make sure that here on the dashboard, you have dev selected. This is important too. Anything else I may have missed?
I think people have not started working on this. This is understandable. But we wanted to start early with this. So to get you started with this, This is intense course like all data courses. There is no way to get a break between assignment and assignment. It doesn't exist in data. You understand that. You have been long enough in the program, so that's why we are starting. It's totally understandable they are not questioned at this point. I totally can understand. They will start working and the questions are gonna come in about 2 days.
Huh? Mm. Mike, let's wait for another week.
Nope.
There will be questions, and if necessary, I'll be more than happy to do the follow-up with X2. We could do the answer.
Yeah, but the follow-up is to ask questions. It's
Right,
not to
right,
tell you the story. The
right.
story is already told.
Yes, exactly.
So I would suggest the following to use the resources wisely. If they are not questioned, there is actually no reason to stay on WebEx. So if we stop recording, the possibility to get the recording sooner is more probable. So I'm going to wait 2 more minutes and end the meeting if we don't have questions.
I don't see any questions in the chat.